To those of you joining us today, thank you for watching the Woburn Spotlight. I'm your host, Tyler Gates, here to bring you some positivity by talking to those in town, making big strides for the greater good. Today I'm fortunate to have with me Matthew Cohen, who is running for state representative of the 15th District. Matthew, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
I'm an honor. I appreciate that statement. I appreciate that statement. So we're going to get to know you a little bit more today. Hopefully get the viewers that are joining us in the city just to get to know a little bit more about Matthew, his family, and what he stands for as you head into the race and the campaign.
Sounds good to me. So,
do you mind just starting us off? Because I was lucky enough to get to chat with you a little bit before, but for the people that maybe don't know you, do you mind just sharing a little bit about you, what you stand for, and what you're here to talk about today?
Be my pleasure.
Right.
So, born and raised, actually in the district. Born and raised in Lexington, so I was about a third of a mile away from where my parents still live right now. So nice to have that family connection, especially because I got the two young kids. I got an 8-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. Actually, funny enough, both of whom will go to the same exact schools that I went to, elementary right through high school.
That's funny. That's awesome.
College, I guess, up to them. But, so it's nice to have that parents right around the corner. It's free babysitting. So
I bet that's nice. It's right down the road, right? It's what you've known your whole life. So
exactly, yeah. No, I love this district. So this is my favorite place on earth. So I'm really, it's exciting to get to think that I might be able to represent it.
So staying with that note, because I know you have quite the educational background and you joke college is up to the kids, but do you mind just elaborating on your education? Because I know you've been through a lot of it. No small feat by any means. So I'd love for you to spend a moment, just tell us a little bit about where you've been.
Absolutely. So went and did my undergrad just one town over. I was over in Waltham at Brandeis University and got a bachelor's degree in politics while I was there. From there, actually, went and worked for a few years. And then, so I was at the State House, actually working, which we can talk about in a minute too, but I spent over 7 years there at the State House. But while I was there, thought, I'd like a little more education. So I went and got a master's degree at night over at Harvard and got a master's degree in government while I was there. And then when I left the State House, decided I would like some more education, as you're hinting at, and just finished a PhD a couple months ago in political science over at Northeastern University. And wrote my dissertation actually on cybersecurity policy. Something that honestly people told me when I started working on it, why on earth would you ever work on that? It's no one will ever care. And then history does interesting things. So 2016 rolls around and here we are. Now everyone cares.
People care.
So I'd like to say I could see the future, but I might have done some things differently if I could do that. So yeah.
Well, that kind of leads into a good pivot. You said you spent 7 years at the State House. Do you mind elaborating on your time there? That was a good segue.
Absolutely. So actually, I've worked at all levels of government. My first job, was in the town manager's office in Lexington. I was actually started as a volunteer position, and they liked me enough that they actually hired me while I was in high school as sort of a full-time over the summer and then part-time during the school year to work there and be sort of a staffer at the Lexington Town Manager's Office. In between then high school and college, I interned for Senator Kennedy. So I got to see that sort of federal level up close and personal, which was a great experience. And then I actually worked for the Democratic Party as well, the Massachusetts Democratic Party. Spent a couple years there before then moving on to the State House. So as you noted, I did work there over 7 years.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And was a research and budget director while I was up there. And I worked sort of in a dual role. So one of the roles was as a committee staffer, and that was for the Joint Committee on Mental Health and Substance Abuse, and then also in the district offices for both Ruth Balzer in Newton and Liz Malia in Jamaica Plain. And actually the current representative here, Jay Kaufman, helped get me that job. So I worked on his first campaign, funny enough, when I was in high school. So spent a lot of time doing all this. So I know everything it takes at the State House. I know how to get things done there. I've drafted and passed major legislation and worked with my team, led a team to get things done, and I've served constituents up there, and really the only candidate with that kind of experience.
It sounds like you have quite the journey in politics, I would call it.
I appreciate that.
Where did you get started? Is there a moment in your early youth or something that kind of sparked interest in politics? I feel like with such a narrow focus for most of your career, you had to have something that kind of was the catalyst.
Sure. So, I guess honestly, I just always wanted to do it. Yeah,
okay, I was just curious.
When I was when you're a kid and everyone asks, what is it you want to do? My only ever answer was President of the United States. I'm not saying that's what I want to do anymore. Yeah. I don't think that's the job I desire anymore. But, politics was always what I cared about, because I've always had this thought, everyone has a way to give back to their community. We all have different skill sets, different things we know how to do, and different ways to help. And for me, what I care about, what I know how to do, is make policy and make effective policy that really helps people. And it's what I spent my life learning how to do. And I want to put it now to use again, and really see what I can do for the district.
And you make a great point with the leadership skills. You reverting back to what you said earlier, you led a team and you know what it takes to push some of this major policy through. Do you mind spending a moment on your leadership skills, some of the other strengths that you bring to the table for us, Matthew?
Absolutely. So, every level of government is different. And the skills I learned at the local and federal levels, honestly, they don't translate necessarily to the state level, because it's its own set of rules, its own set of personalities and procedures and history and the way things are supposed to be done. And having worked in the State House recently, it was 5 years ago that I left to get the PhD, I really understand what those procedures are. I know where to go, things like even where you drop off a bill. That may sound small, but you got to know what to do when you're doing these things.
Right.
But to the kind of detail. But so working for me at the State House, I had sort of a team of researchers who were underneath me, and their job was to help me sort of, the representative gives the guidance to start, and then we sort of go from there and figure out, well, how do you actually make this happen? So that's not easy to do. You have to pore over the existing law. You have to pore over court cases. You have to talk with legal counsel, and we actually hired a legal counsel for that reason. So I have that experience too, sort of working with that legal counsel, and that's a valuable thing to have as well, because figuring out how you work that sort of legal aspect in, that sort of precedent and that history in, isn't always easy with this process. And I know how to do those things, and it was great to have that sort of team under me, many of whom stayed with me for almost the entirety of my time there. So a couple came in with me, and one of them actually made it all the way to the end and even stayed past. So I guess they didn't mind working with me too much, but it was a good experience in that regard.
So kind of sticking with the policy theme.
Yeah.
I know a very similar question I've asked many of the candidates are some of the passions or policy or where I'm going with that, some of the regulatory issues that you have near and dear to your heart that you'll carry forward through with you to the State House. Do you mind touching upon any of those major key factors for you or anything that you're carrying with you in your campaign?
Sure, absolutely. So looking forward at my goals, I see a few things that I'd really like to do. One is education policy. And to me we live in a district with some really great schools, which is a nice thing to have. But a lot of the Commonwealth, not every school district is as strong as some of the ones we've got here. So I'd like to see sort of more resources, more attention paid to making sure that the Commonwealth lives up to that name, that every student has those opportunities. And one thing to me in that regard is we got to reduce the importance of standardized testing. All we do is teach to the test. And that's a mistake. I actually ran into my 4th grade teacher as I was out campaigning, and it was a lot of fun talking with him. But one of the things that I remember that I liked best about him was he was just a lot of fun. He taught us things in innovative ways because he had real flexibility, real freedom to do whatever he felt necessary for each individual student, because every student is different. And he knew that the job's not just to impart some basic information, and I know that other teachers know this too. It's to teach people, how to use that information, how to think, how to move forward with their lives. And so I think we're failing our students right now. We need to be focusing a lot more on not just giving students information. Of course we need to do that. But it needs to be, how do you use that information? How do you think about the world? People won't fall for lies. People won't fall for tricks if we give them a real education where people can understand how to process this information. So I think that's something I'd really like to work on up at the State House. And another area I think is really important to me is the economy. And fighting not just for things. I'm glad we raised the minimum wage. That was a fantastic achievement. By the time it's $15, it probably won't be living anymore, and we'll have to fight this battle yet again, and that's unfortunate. I think we've got to find a way to, peg that minimum wage to some index that'll move it along with sort of rising prices. But we have to look too sort of for working families, and that's a big issue for me. Is how do you help working families? So I actually just got an endorsement of a local union, and I'm very proud to have that. And that's really important to me, is to show that I'm really fighting for these working families. And I want to carry that through, up to the State House, not just looking at some of these sort of the lower end of the spectrum, but working families. Well, I come from a family where my mother's a member of a union. She's a professor, and she's a member of a teachers union. And I've seen firsthand the importance that unions can play in this type of process. She worked for 3 years with no contract recently. Just finally got a contract and a pay raise after 3 years, and it's because of the union. So we got to fight for these working families, at all levels. So that's something I'm very passionate about, and honored to get that endorsement for that reason. But
certainly,
and obviously environment. It's all meaningless if we got nowhere to live. So we got to find ways to increase access to alternative energy. So right now in the Commonwealth, for example, energy companies like NSTAR or Eversource are required to provide only 12% of the electricity that they provide to consumers from renewable or alternative sources. And we used to be a leader in that regard. We were one of the first states to set any sort of standard. And now we're laughably behind. There are states, I think it's California, I want to say, not 100% on that, but
I won't hold you to it.
Not a gotcha, yeah. But aiming for 100% in 20 years. We can do that. We have all the tools here necessary to be both the innovative side and the production side. We need to do it, because this will be a boon for the economy. It'll be a great pickup for working families, and it'll be a great pickup for the environment as well. So it's a no-brainer to start increasing that percentage and to really start innovating and building and leading the world in this regard.
That's a great point. And would you like to keep going with that point? I don't want to interject by any means. So I know you have a couple of great points there. If somebody wants to talk a little bit policy with you or get to know Matthew a little bit more, I wanted to make sure to spend some time. You were mentioning to me that you're going to be doing some coffees, talking a little bit with the public, or sitting down pretty much between now and September on a daily basis with people in Lexington in this area as well. So do you mind just sharing a little bit about how we find out about those coffee meetings? I want to make sure if someone wants to shake your hand and say hello, they get to do so.
Absolutely. So first I'd say is you may not have to come to a coffee. I may be at your door. My goal, honestly, is to knock on every door in the district. So it's a lot of doors, but
ambitious.
It's worth it. It's worth it. So I'll be doing my best to knock on every door that I can within the district. I don't miss a day when I can do that. But for those interested in the coffees, if they go to www.cohenforstaterep.com, you'll be able to find sort of lots of information on policy detail, with more being added on essentially a weekly basis. Keep adding to that website. And there'll be information on the coffees. And if anyone wants to reach out directly, easy to find me by email. It's cohenforstaterep@gmail.com.
You made it simple.
I tried to keep things easy, and I'm always happy to talk. I'm always happy if anyone wants to reach out to me. I'll come meet anyone, one-on-one basis. I keep my mornings pretty free so that I can just sit down and not have, the big coffee with people, but just a cup of coffee with a single person. And I've been doing that a lot, and it's been a lot of fun. It's a great way for me, too. You can't represent somewhere if you don't go out and meet the people. And going to big meetings, honestly, it's not enough in my mind. You got to be doing the door knocking. It's critical to it. And I wish more candidates would do it. I'm glad that I have that opportunity.
There's a lot to be said about the hard work.
I think so. Yeah, I think because it really it's helped me understand too exactly what people want and need, and I want to represent that and serve their interests.
That's a great point. What they want and need. What should these voters be asking, not just of you, but of the other candidates that are in this race?
Sure. I think there's a few things they should be asking us. I think it's important for them to know, really, one, what would we do? Not just, it's great to say, yeah, we all support the environment, but how would you do something about it? Let's talk specifics. We should be holding all candidates, me included, by the way. That's nothing excluding me.
And that's why I asked,
we should definitely be holding all of us accountable and say exactly what will you try to do. And I think it's important too that people understand whoever wins this race, honestly, will have very little power. This will be a first-year representative. And so understand that we'll all do our best, but hold us to it.
Yeah.
Make sure that we're really going to try. And I think to that point, it's important too that they look at experience, because Jay Kaufman is chair of the Revenue Committee. He's a powerful figure in the State House. He can get a lot of stuff done, and he has. But whoever comes next again will not have that kind of power. So someone who knows how to get things done from the start, I think is important, especially in a time where, this is a turbulent period. And we really want to make sure that someone is here who can promote the interests of this district, protect our district. And so I think experience is critical. And I am the candidate, as we were discussing, I have a lot of government experience. I know how to interact with the different levels of government, and I know how to get things done at the State House. And the candidate with that most experience, I think, is important. And I think one other thing that is important to ask us too is, what would we do for good governance? How do we view transparency? So all candidates are required to file a sort of financial and ethical disclosure form. And it's technically available to the public, but it's really hard to access. And if you access it, they alert the campaign that it's been accessed. So most people don't want to do it. I removed that step. I'm committed to showing I have no conflicts of interest. I'm ready from the start to serve just this district. And I posted mine on my website. And it's right there for everyone to find. You can see, exactly what my sort of situation is.
That's unique.
I think it's important that we do that because, I've made a point in my life never to invest in companies that, harm public health, try to avoid harming the environment. I don't invest in these kinds of companies. And I think it's important that we see that, I own no stock directly in any company. I will be here just 100% to serve the people of the district. And, I think that's an important thing. What will we be doing? How will we be showing that we are transparent and interested in good governance? So, yeah.
Great point. So let's get a little bit more direct.
That sounds good.
Day one in the office.
Sure.
What policy are you bringing to the table, or what is one of the first initiatives? I know we spent some time on education, economy, and environment, but do you mind elaborating on maybe something that you've had in mind or would like to bring to the table day one?
Absolutely. So, I think honestly working on education on my first day would be my top priority.
Yep.
That would be the thing I most want to work on. So I think we need to do things like readjust how state funding for education is handled. So the way it's done now, many cities in particular lose out on a great deal of funding because the funding mechanisms that the state uses are antiquated. So we need to fix that right away so that communities that aren't getting what they need will start getting what they need. And that's important to make sure that, because even if, let's say Lexington or Woburn, maybe either one of those communities, maybe nothing changes in this regard. But, Woburn's economy, the district's economy as a whole, will do better if everyone has a better education. So if other communities are getting better educations as well, that's a win for everybody. We'll all do better as a result. So I think it's an important step. And I do want to, on day one, look at how can we get critical thinking reinserted into teaching again. So it's not just about passing a standardized test.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And as our time kind of draws to an end, Matthew, I really appreciate your time, and I kind of want to just give you the floor for a moment to speak to the viewers directly. Sure. Share whatever you feel like sharing, talk about whatever you like to talk about, but I've enjoyed our time together, and feel free to take the stage.
Oh, I appreciate that. I really appreciate you having me. This is a lot of fun. I'm always happy to come on and talk, and I'm always happy to talk about any issues that may come up during the campaign. And should I win, should I be honored to be chosen by the voters, I would love to be back.
And, very glad to have you.
No, thank you.
Wonderful. So the stage is yours, my friend.
Wonderful, thank you. So, I appreciate for all of you who have been tuning in to view this. This has been a great opportunity for me to get to speak with you, and I hope I'll get the chance to speak with you sort of more individually, one-on-one. And I think as you go to decide who you're voting for, I encourage you to look at all the candidates. These are all good people, and it's a great field that we've got in front of us. I think there are some things that really separate us, and I think if you go and look at our policy focuses and what we really want to do, you will see that there are some differences between us. I think in the end, one of the biggest differences above anything else will be that experience, and really who's prepared to serve the needs of this district, the needs of working families, the needs of students, whoever they may be, someone who's going to be able to effectively fight for real equality in this district, who will protect all the residents of our great Commonwealth. Well, I'm the only one with that kind of real in-depth experience at all levels of government. I'm the one with the most experience at the State House, and I feel very prepared to be able to go in and really be a powerful voice for this district. And I encourage you, please go check out my website, www.cohenforstaterep.com. Give it a look. If you see anything that interests you on there, see anything you agree with or disagree with, please feel free to reach out. The whole basis of this campaign has been talking to you, the public, because I believe it's the only way that I could possibly do this job effectively if I were lucky enough and honored enough to be selected as the representative from this district. I want to be a voice supporting you, a voice that's there for you. And my door will always be open to people in this district. So, I hope to hear from you. If I don't hear from you directly, you will likely hear from me at your door. And I thank you for interest and for taking the time to listen to this.
So Matthew, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you very much for taking the time.
We'll hopefully speak with you again soon. I look forward to seeing what you
great.
can do over this campaign.
I appreciate that, and thank you so much.
And thank you all for watching today's show with Matthew Cohen. And remember, we all have one life to live. Let's all do our part. I'm your host, Tyler Gates. Join us again next time for another episode of the Woburn Spotlight.